Okay, troops, yesterday we were talking about using one of these four-way adapters to connect four items to a single socket. That then plugs into your socket with a plug, and I said that the maximum current you can get from a socket is 13 amps, and the maximum power then that you can get from a socket is 3000 watts. Why is it 13 amps? Well, let's have a wee look inside the plug. This is a UK plug which has got 3 pins, and we will come back to the fact that it's got 3 pins in a little while. You only need 2 pins to actually make it work. This third one has got a special job. We'll come back to that. These pins have all got names, by the way. Let's open this up, okay? Don't try this at home. If I open that up, when we look inside, then there are 3 different coloured wires. Now, the colours of the wires is really important. The colours were actually very carefully chosen. There is a brown wire. The brown wire is called the live wire. And the brown wire goes to this bottom right terminal. BR, first 2 letters of brown. BR, first 2 letters of bottom right. That's the brown wire. Now, going to the bottom left, there's a wee clue there. BL for bottom left is a blue wire. It's hidden behind this green and yellow one. The green and yellow wire is called the earth wire, and it gets connected to the top pin. That's this pin on this side that we'll talk about later. So, brown wire, live wire, blue wire, neutral wire. The live wire is the wire that the energy is delivered to your appliance through, and therefore it's the dangerous one, and it needs a little safety device. Here's the safety device. It's called a fuse, and if you look carefully at this fuse, it's got a number on it. It says 13 amps. So a 13 amp fuse will allow a current to flow up to 13 amps. And that fuse can be removed. I'll just pop that out. Tesco sells these, or Asda, or your preferred local supermarket. And what happens is, there's a little piece of wire inside there, a little thin piece of wire. If more than 13 amps flows through it, that little piece of wire melts, and effectively it breaks that path that the current would be flowing down your flex, through the brown wire. This is now broken, so therefore no electricity can come out through your live wire. So the fuse is a safety device. It melts if too high a current flows. So if you try and plug too much stuff into a 4-way adapter, and the appliances are trying to pull more than 13 amps from your socket, then that little fuse doesn't allow it. The fuse limits the amount of current that can flow to your appliances to 13 amps. Now, that's a 4-way adapter. It's got a 13 amp fuse in it. Are there different sizes of fuses? Yes, there are. I better put that back safely on again. Tighten it up. Remember, don't try this at home. Don't go taking your plugs apart. Right? It used to be you actually had to wire a plug when you bought a new device. But thankfully, things have changed now, and things come with plugs on them. Here's another example. It's called a moulded plug. There's no screw in the back. You can't take it off. There's no screw in the front. You can't take it off. But it still has a fuse. You see that wee hatch there? Got a little hatch in it. And we can lift that hatch and, if necessary, remove the fuse. What size of fuse is in here? That's a mystery. There it is. It's a 5 amp fuse. Okay, now I've taken that fuse out of a one of these connectors that probably went into, oh, I don't know, games console or a DVD player or something. So smaller fuse because the device only needs a smaller amount of power. The whole point of having a smaller fuse is that if anything goes wrong with your device and there's a fault in it and there's a large surge of current that goes down the wire to your device, then that fuse will blow, it'll melt as soon as the current reaches 5 amps. So stops your appliance melting, stops your flex melting, the fuse melts, and then it's just a simple case of going down to Tesco and buying replacement fuses. You should always make sure that you replace your fuses with the correct size. Now I put that in the wrong way. Okay, back in business. Now, again, we've got 3 pins here. So, only these 2 bottom pins here are required to make the actual appliance work. This pin here does nothing at all, normally. Let me show you another plug. Now, have a wee look at this one. This is a plug for a charger for a video camera. Now, 3 pins, but this one is made of black plastic, not made of metal at all. All it does is help you plug it into the socket. This pin is not required. And the reason for that is that there is absolutely no chance of you getting an electric shock from this charger. It's completely encased in plastic. It's what's called double insulated. There's 2 layers of insulation between any of the live parts and you, because this pin, it's called the earth pin, and that green and yellow wire that's in the inside, if we go back to the other one I showed you, the green and yellow wire does nothing at all in terms of the actual operation of the appliance. Its job, it's a safety wire. If there was to be some fault with your appliance, for example, if you took your hairdryer into the bathroom and it was plugged in, notice there's no sockets in your bathroom. But if you were daft and you ran an extension cable into your bathroom from the hall and accidentally dropped your hairdryer into the sink and it was full of water, then that would be very dangerous. What would happen is you would get a huge surge of current. It's called a short circuit. And that huge surge of current would flow through your hairdryer. That surge of electricity would rush down your earth wire, the safety wire, and that large current would blow the fuse and make it safe. So this earth wire and this earth pin is only required as a safety device, and it's only required on certain appliances where there is a slight chance that you could get an electric shock if you touched the live parts. So if it's a plastic device or if it's a low powered device with no chance of you getting a dangerous electric shock, that pin will just be made of plastic. There's also black plastic on these pins, and the reason for that is that it stops small children from putting their fingers in there while they're trying to plug it in or unplug it from a socket. So there's lots of safety features built into our plugs. There is the fuse. Remember, a fuse limits how much current you can get from the socket, 13 amps. There is the earth wire. The earth wire provides a safe path for electricity to flow if there is a fault, which then blows the fuse. And there is the plastic on the pins that will prevent you from getting a shock if you were to touch them while plugging it in or taking it out. Now, other sizes of fuses. That's my 4-way adapter. This was my DVD player plug, moulded plug. The only thing you've got access to is the fuse inside it. You can't access the wires. That's a 5 amp fuse. Okay, low power device. And last one, my charger for the camera. If I flip open the wee door inside, is a 3 amp fuse. So if I was replacing that fuse, I would make sure I replace it with a 3 amp fuse. What's the rule for fuses? Well, if the power of your device is less than 700 watts, use a 3 amp fuse. If the power of your device is more than 700 watts, then you should really use a 13 amp fuse. But I suppose the easiest way is to, if you're changing a fuse, look at the size of the old one, replace it with the one that's exactly the same size. That's fuses. Now, they are not the only fuses and safety devices that are in your house. There are some others. You probably have a box like this somewhere in your house. Might be in a garage, might be under the stairs, might be in the hall, in a wee cupboard somewhere. And what these are called circuit breakers. There used to be fuses in the olden days, but they've been replaced nowadays with circuit breakers. They've got numbers on them, and those numbers are the sizes of the currents, the maximum currents that you can have in various circuits in your house. So these will be sockets down the stairs, sockets up the stairs, that'll be the shower, that'll be the lights downstairs, that'll be the lights upstairs. Notice that the lights take a much smaller current, only 5 amps. You may have other things in your house like an oven or your central heating boiler. You can have up to maybe 20 switches in your circuit breakers. As well as that, you also have other safety fuses in the house that no one's allowed to touch. These have got 80 amp fuses in them. And believe it or not, out in the street outside, there are 300 amp fuses as well. So there is safety at every point in your house. And the last thing to really mention is this guy, your electricity meter. We'll come back to him in a little while. When you're changing a fuse, and why might you have to change a fuse? Well, let's say for example, I've got a kind of sound system here. If I was using that outside and it was pouring with rain and I got soaking wet, then electricity and water are not a good mix. So chances are, if I then brought that back in and tried to plug it in, then a huge current would try and flow to that device because it's soaking wet, and that would blow the fuse in the plug. So if you're replacing that fuse, if there's been a short circuit in your device because it's got wet, if you take that fuse out, if that's a 3 amp fuse, then make sure you replace it with a 3 amp fuse. If you take a 3 out, you put a 3 back in again. Yes, if you put a 13 in, it will work. Yes, if you put a 5 amp fuse in, it will work. In fact, even if you put a nail or a bit of silver paper or a paper clip, that would work as well. But here's the point. The reason that's a 3 amp fuse is that as soon as that current is more than 3 amps, that fuse will blow. That's designed to happen. That protects that piece of equipment, because any more than 3 amps flowing through that piece of equipment will destroy it or melt it inside. So if you replace the wrong fuse, if you put a 13 amp fuse in there, then electricity will flow to your device up to 13 amps before the fuse will blow, and that could destroy your appliance, whatever it is. So always fit the right size of fuse. There's been horror stories of people replacing fuses with bits of silver paper and nails, and their houses have burnt down as a result. So don't do it. Always replace your fuses with the right size of fuse. Remember, 3 amp is okay for low power devices up to about 700 watts. If you've got very high power devices like toaster, kettle, hairdryer, 13 amp fuse. Okay. If you do replace it with a nail or a bit of silver paper or some hack to get it working, and there's still a fault with your device, then what you're going to do is you're going to blow the circuit breakers in your house. Okay, final thing about fuses is, as well as there being a fuse in the plug, with some devices there is an internal fuse in the actual device itself, and this one has got a little 3.15 amp fuse in it. So that's just an added piece of security. They're called internal fuses, and you'll get them in things like games consoles and music equipment. Internal fuses, so watch out for them.